Views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of alltalkradio.net.
Looking back at life as it's been before, holding on to things that might have been, knowing that this day will never come again.
And welcome to Soul Chat. That's correct. I said Soul Chat, not Synchronicity in Your Life. I'm Jane McGuire. My co-host today is Vicki Clare. Lainey Risto is out of state in Utah on some business. So I have the owner of a local store called Well of the Moon. And so Vicki is my guest today. Hello, Vicki.
Hello, Jane. Thank you for having me on today.
I'm actually really looking forward to this. We are going to be talking about Celtic shamanism, and those of you that have been listening know that Lainey does Nordic shamanism, so we have Vicki here to talk about Celtic shamanism, about her store, pagan pride, even talk about some fairy things, and really get into this. But the first thing we wanted to get on is the supermoon.
Ah, yes, the supermoon. Well, it's not all that super. The supermoon is labeled because this is when the moon is at perigee, meaning when it's closest to our planet, this month.
Yeah, and this is the third month in a row.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It is also when the moon begins to rise later in the evening and stay in the sky for a shorter period of time.
Signaling the change of seasons.
Correct.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. We're coming up on the autumn equinox on the 23rd of this month.
I thought that was celebrated on the 20th, the 21st.
No, it's on the 23rd.
It's on the 23rd, and that's an astronomical thing. So that changes every September. It's between the 20th and the 23rd, correct?
We look at it usually on the 23rd.
Okay.
But if we want to look at the astronomical event, it would be closer to the 20th and 21st.
Okay, so that explains the discrepancy.
Right. Yeah, there's a little bit of precession there for those of you into astrology. I'm not terribly, but.
Well, yeah, you explained a few things to me, and some of these terms are Latin to me.
Very correct.
So, but I will say that, Lainey had a talk with me this morning. This is a full moon in Pisces, and she said that the Pisces is a very intuitive sign. It's in February, February 20th to, I believe, March 20th.
March 22nd.
22nd. And that this particular full moon is a good time to really do some deep soul clearing, grounding, and what people call manifesting in this time for change, and to really anchor these changes that you want to bring in.
That's correct. Pisces and Scorpio both deal with the things that are hidden within us, those things that flow below our sight, actually. Mm-hmm. And so this is a good time to look deep within. And with the autumn equinox coming up, that's very appropriate because this is the time when human beings in general start turning inward, staying home more because the weather changes, and also being a little bit more solitary. Again, looking within.
Yeah, and I think it's always a good idea to go within and do a kind of a life review. But I know that for me, this last week has been kind of doing that, just going a lot internal. And I do pranic healing, and tonight the Master Co is going to be doing a full moon meditation, actually from Ireland. Which, nice little segue into the next topic.
Right.
So you are a Celtic shaman.
Yes.
Okay. That's the short answer. By the way, if you have any questions about Celtic shamanism or want to know more about Well of the Moon, please feel free to call in. The number is 702-609-7626. And if that line is busy, you can go into Skype and type in the search bar All Talk Radio and call in from Skype. So we are taking calls if you've got some questions about Celtic shamanism or fairies or whatever else we're going to cover today. So tell us a little bit about Celtic shamanism, because I don't know all that much about it.
All right. Well, I'm sure all of your listeners know that shamanism is a word that has been co-opted by the modern media and the modern New Age movement. So I'll kind of keep away from that part of it, of splitting hairs. However, the Celtic style of shamanism is basically the same as any other style of shamanism, where we develop relationships with other beings in the spirit worlds. We consider our closest allies to be our ancestors of the blood. So instead of going directly to the goddesses and gods, we would go to our ancestors.
And so you're talking about using like the Celtic pantheon. And when we say Celtic, let's clarify, this does not always mean Irish. This can be Scot, Welsh, all of that.
Well, actually, the Celtic lands stretch all the way from Turkey, which is Galatia, to Ireland.
Yes.
And many parts of mainland Europe, even Germany. And in fact, the Norse tribes and the Celtic tribes have a lot of similarities. But in general, they were not a nation. They were a culture, not necessarily unified. However, they did have the same religious stream through all of them, but they also concentrated on local gods and goddesses. With as little separation geographically as 3 miles, they would have a similar god or goddess name, but it would be a completely different entity.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about a pantheon when I speak of the ancestors. I'm literally speaking of your blood ancestors being your spiritual allies.
So my great-grandmother, my great-grandfather from Ireland, those
That is correct.
Right. Okay.
And stretching back all the way to the roots of humanity, in fact, because we each have all of the knowledge and wisdom of every culture that our family line has traveled through over the ages.
I believe that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so we can go to them, to those that had the knowledge, the wisdom, and the lore, and ask them to be our teachers.
So let's clear some stuff up. So a myth about Celtic shamanism, and then a truth.
A myth about it.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, something that is a belief out there that needs to be corrected. Well, let's say you work with beings, right? So
that's correct.
You work with the gods and goddesses. What other beings do you work with?
We work with the fairy people. We work with the ancestors.
Fae, right.
Yes. We can work with entities from other planets.
Yeah, we won't get. We had that discussion. I'm not going to get into aliens. There's enough alien shows here.
Yes. So we can work with what are commonly called the ascended masters. To me personally, those would be those that have passed on, that were very knowledgeable in the workings of the other worlds, which there are many of them.
Right.
And they have chosen to stay available to humanity so that they can be teachers and mentors.
Yes, and I believe, we're not going to name the Ascended Masters. Pretty much people that follow that will know who they are.
I would have different ones than they would.
Right. Okay, so who are the Ascended Masters in the Celtic shaman?
They would be particular individuals that were living people or incarnate in this world, and each person would make contact with different one of them. One of the ones from my line of witchcraft and shamanism would be a woman by the name of Sarah, and she was an Irish woman, and my contact with her was passed on to me through Orion Foxwood, who is one of my teachers and mentors.
Okay, and he's a Celtic shaman?
He is what's called a fairy seer.
A fairy seer. So let's talk about this. First of all, let's get into a little bit about the upcoming holiday. We've got Halloween coming up, which is traditionally a pagan holiday.
That's correct.
And actually, from my studies, it actually originated in Ireland.
That is correct.
So, and there were some beliefs that if you put out snacks or goodies for the Fae that night, that you would be protected. Is that correct?
Yes. In fact, the custom of wearing costumes came from the Irish as well.
We're just a lot of fun.
They would actually put their clothing on backward to confuse the spirits, to keep harmful spirits from approaching them.
See,
So-
we were original in that, and these gangbangers think that they created that.
I know, putting your hat on backwards. Whoa.
No. We've been doing that for years. Well, you know what they say. God created the Irish and then sat back and laughed.
Very true. We're an entertaining bunch.
We are.
Yes. Now, in the shamanism, we have a place that we go to meet spirits, the fairy peoples, and the gods and goddesses. And this is the crossroads. Now, a crossroads can be any joining of any roads. The old traditional one is actually a Y-shaped crossroads. So there are 3 roads running off of it. And also the 4 roads. So making that plus sign, as you're more familiar with, I'm sure.
Sure, absolutely.
Yes.
So there's also the Celtic, there's the regular tree of life, and then don't they also have like the tree of Ogum or the Celtic tree of life?
The tree is ubiquitous all over the world.
Yes. It's in many-
Most people
yeah.
would think of the Kabbalistic tree, which
Yeah.
is a geometric construct.
Okay.
In the fairy seership and the Celtic shamanism, we're working with a literal tree.
Okay, so you're working with an actual physical tree.
A physical
okay.
tree.
Okay.
And of course, it is not a concept to us, it is a reality.
Okay.
Typically in the Celtic culture, it's an oak tree.
Right.
But it could be ash, which is the
Mhm.
rowan tree, or even a thorn tree.
And these trees, what's their symbolism?
The oak is uprightness, steadiness, strength.
Being grounded and rooted.
Yes,
Okay.
being grounded and rooted. Rowan or ash is magic and witchcraft.
Okay.
And then the thorn is the separation between the worlds, our world where the fields are plowed,
Mhm.
and the other worlds where they are unplowed and we find mystery and magic.
Okay. So when you do this type of work, what are some of the traditional things that you do in Celtic shamanism?
Well, one of my favorite practices is called the Imrama. Imrama, loosely translated, means to row about or the soul's journey. This is a walking form of divination or telling the future, looking for signs from the gods and the goddesses. And it can be done anywhere, because if you look around you, everything around us is made from nature.
Right.
So you don't have to find a nature preserve to do this. You put yourself into...
Maybe in Las Vegas you do. It's an awful lot of cement. Of course, not after last night. But
Well, I consider wherever I am to be a sacred place.
Right.
So this is something that sets the Celtic shamanism apart from many other traditions, is wherever your feet are is sacred. So you put yourself into a light trance state so that you can function in the world as well as be aware of the other worlds. Then you go for a walk and you look for signs. And the sign might say, "Sale on shoes," or a discarded matchbook that says, "Bob's Restaurant."
so telling you to go eat and buy shoes. So this sounds similar to meditation.
No, you are literally going into an otherworld journey.
Oh,
It
okay.
is not
So
a
it's
meditation.
it's a journey like what? Okay, so it's a journey.
It is
Okay.
a journey,
Okay.
a literal journey where you are walking between the worlds.
Okay. Yes, I've
Between-
done the journeys.
Yes.
Okay.
And so what does sale mean to you? Does it mean discard worldly possessions? Does that eat at Bob's Bar and Grill mean that you need inspiration because those are matches in that matchbook? The discarded shoe, have you forgotten something or lost part of yourself?
Right.
Also, in one of my latest journeys, as I was walking down the sidewalk, the road became a great river.
Oh, so you had a vision of the rainstorm,
Perhaps.
or maybe the old Imperial Palace, now the Link, with all
Yes.
their wonderful flooding problems.
Yes, and then
So-
the headlights on the cars became the white caps on the waves of the river.
Oh, nice.
And
Okay.
and the cars themselves were boats bringing people and cargo into the bays that were shopping centers.
That definitely sounds like you had a premonition, a vision of our weather. And I do want to say that you are also a licensed psychic
That is correct. I am a
And-
licensed psychic.
and owner of the store Well of the Moon, where I get to make this announcement again, where I will be starting.
Yes,
And-
we're very
and
excited.
Yes, I'm excited too. I'll be starting there. Hopefully next, I will, if my license comes in today, I'll be starting there tomorrow. So that's exciting. And you run your store a little bit differently from other places that I've worked, which is a good thing.
Yes, we are a retail establishment primarily, but we also have the licensed psychics. We also have open rituals and classes there as well.
Yes, and you're actually, and we're going to get back to Celtic shamanism in a minute. You actually have an event coming up.
Yes, we do. Well of the Moon is helping to support Las Vegas Pagan Pride Day, which is our Pride Day, kind of like the gays have their Pride Day. We have our Pride Day, too, in our religion. And we are doing a benefit for them. It's a mini psychic fair on Saturday, September 13th from 12:30 to 6:30, so it's an open house kind of thing.
Okay.
We'll have several different kinds of psychics there. And tickets are $5 a piece. For every $5 ticket you buy, you get 5 minutes in front of one of the psychics. There'll also be snacks for sale and drinks.
Oh, good.
And I think we'll probably have some T-shirts as well for Pagan Pride Day.
Awesome.
The money will go directly to Las Vegas Pagan Pride. It will be cash only because I am not running this through the business. It'll be for them only.
So when does, now this starts noon to 5, you said?
12:30 to 6:30.
12:30 to 6:30. And when is Las Vegas Pagan Pride?
It will be Saturday, November 8th at the Gilcrease Nature Sanctuary.
Oh, Gilcrease is awesome.
Yes.
That's a wonderful place.
Yes.
Yeah,
And we'll be gathering, at the Pagan Pride Day, we'll be gathering food for 3 Square Food Bank. So the price of admission is a non-perishable food item. Now, on Saturday, September 13th, we are also gathering plain white crew socks for men, women, and children, and sample-sized toiletries to be donated to Safe Nest and Shade Tree Family Shelter.
And I would tell people, I've done this kind of stuff for veteran organizations. If you're interested in participating in this, please get a hold of Vicki at Well of the Moon. Actually, give out your number right now.
The number at Well of the Moon is 702-666-7200.
Oh, okay. The Christians are going to have a ball with that number.
Well, we think it's hilarious because of the misconceptions about our religion. We're very, very life-affirming.
Right.
There is no entity of ultimate evil or eternal punishment in our religion at all. The underworld gods and goddesses to us are actually quite compassionate.
Okay, so that's, if they want to get in touch with you and participate in this, they can find out more information by calling the store. And I wanted to get back to the Pagan Pride for a second. This, or actually to the organization, if you're going to participate and bring donations, toiletries and things like that, it is very important to do travel size, like you
correct.
said. And there's a few stores around town that actively will donate as long as they have some kind of letter saying that this is going to go to a charity. Fresh and Easy is one of them. And so you can buy a lot of these things. You can go to the 99-cent store and fill up, and for $10 you can buy a lot of stuff that's worth giving, especially to people that are getting out of a domestic violence situation or have become suddenly homeless for whatever reason. So these toiletries and the food, they're going to help other people in this community.
That's correct. And, all of us live in this community regardless of what our religious practices are.
Right. Right, and it's my belief that we all have a duty to get involved, but that's just my belief. So back to the Celtic shamanism and working with the Fae. There's a few, and I say this almost every time. I am Irish. My last name is McGuire.
Yes.
So, but there are some teachings out there about, let's take for example the teaching of incarnated fairies.
Ah, yes.
Okay, this is a popular teaching that's been around the web for at least 10 or 15 years now.
Yes, that's correct.
And you are here to correct that teaching.
Yes. If you study the old lore, and I'll be specific so that people can follow up themselves,
sure.
Okay, you would want to check with the writings of Fiona MacLeod. And Fiona MacLeod was the pen name of the author William Sharp. But she was also a living fairy woman who William basically channeled and wrote plays, poetry, novels, etc. And what she was at the end of her life, and so she was trying to make sure that the knowledge of fairy got to humanity. But it was hidden within all of this poetry and such.
That's how the Irish do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's called the tongue of poetry. So she says specifically that a fairy can incarnate. However, A person cannot be born a fairy from a human mother. They can be born half fairy, but it
Okay.
is very rare.
So this particular teaching, we're not going to mention names. Is it possible that there are people that are more attached to one dimension? Like I'm attached to the angels,
Right.
right? But we've talked about my oldest daughter. I think she's just. I mean, you look at her and she does. She's the type that goes from flower to flower to flower and project to project to project and just, you know. And if I had to look at her and describe her as coming from any dimension, it would be from the Fey world.
Well, there are people that are fairy-like
Yeah.
and angel-like and even vampire-like.
Yes. I know that to be a truth. Absolutely.
But are they living embodiments of this? My personal belief is no. My teachers, such as R.J. Stewart and Orion Foxwood, Christopher Penzac, etc., very well-known pagan authors and Celtic scholars, in fact, would say there is no such thing as an incarnated fairy unless they are half fairy.
And how do you know if somebody's half fairy? I mean, I would take a look at Jim Carrey and just assume he is. You know, just because of the movies that he does, the type of humor that he is. That I mean, I would just look at that and say, yeah, that's what I would think.
Well, I don't have the answer to that.
So
I don't know.
Okay, and that's fair. So would there be a resource we could go to check and see?
No.
Okay. So I mean, because a lot of times in the Celtic tradition, and you know more about this than I do, a lot of people associate fae and leprechauns are part of the fairy world.
Right.
And they associate those with tricksters.
Yes, that is correct. There are trickster figures in the Fae, Puck being one of them. In fact, a good book to read would be Puck of Pook Hill by Rudyard Kipling.
I used to love Rudyard Kipling.
Yes,
Yeah.
and actually it's a very accurate portrayal of Puck himself. And Puck is considered the oldest named entity in Britain.
Okay.
And so take a good look at that bit of storytelling that Rudyard Kipling did, because it's a very accurate portrayal of the trickster type. However, that is only one type of fairy. Just like there are many types of people, there are many types of fae.
Okay.
Now, fae is a race name, just like human.
Okay.
They prefer something to the like the gentry, or the good neighbors, or the fair folk.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard the fair folk.
Yes, the gentry are the noble ones. This would be the courts of fae. You'll hear them called the Seelie court and the unseelie court. Interestingly enough, Seelie in Scottish means canny, or knowledgeable, or skilled.
Yeah. Okay.
And unseelie means uncanny or unskilled. And really they are the rulers of the different halves of the year. The court of the Seelie are the light half of the year, and the unseelie is the dark half of the year.
And is it true also, or to the best of your knowledge, that a lot of the beings that are in the Fey world are nature beings?
Yes
Nature
and no.
devils.
There are nature spirits that live in the realm of the Fae.
Okay.
However, they are not Fae themselves.
Okay.
They are attached to that particular spot or that particular plant.
Okay.
They would be, and actually, the old ways are that river and stone and mountain and fire and lightning and storm. Those were the gods.
Right.
Before
the
there were
elements.
named gods. Not the elements, the thing itself.
Oh, okay.
So when you say mountain, that would have been God to that local geographic area. And when you said river, that would have been goddess.
Okay.
Yes. But they didn't name it god and goddess. It was just river. I'll give you a specific example. Danu, who is the mother of the fairies. She is actually, her name comes from the river Danube
Okay.
in Germany. And her name is, the name of the fairy peoples is the Tuatha De Danann.
Right.
And that means children of the goddess Danu. More correctly translated, however, it means people of the arts.
Well, and let's face it, you look at the Celtic world, we've got singers, we've got poets, playwrights. I mean, just there's a lot of entertainment
Yes.
that comes out from that part of the world.
There is the Irish people in particular, and the Celtic culture in general, honored the spoken word. It was just as important to be a storyteller as it was a farmer, a smith.
Yeah.
In fact, if you were only a farmer, then you were considered to be ignorant and crude. But if you also developed the tongue of poetry and could tell stories and songs, then you were considered a person of noble mind and grace.
And we definitely have the storytelling.
Correct.
I mean, that's definitely that. I mean, I know I would sit at the table and listen to my dad tell stories.
Yes.
You know, it is part of the culture.
Yes, and boasting was a part of the culture as well.
Oh, we never do that. We never boast.
Well, one of the assignments that I give to my students is to have them write the myth of me.
Oh, awesome.
And so, for example, let's say you grew up rather poor, okay, but you got a scholarship to go to college, and then you got a really nice job. So instead of saying it quite like that, you'd say, I lived among the downtrodden masses, but always had hope.
Yeah, that does sound Irish.
And so I went to the wealthy halls of the masters, and I asked them for money based on how beautiful my words were. They accepted my plea and granted me a place in the halls of education.
and that does sound very poetic, and that
Yes.
is, you know, I listen to you say that, and I can hear my dad, you know, and it's funny because that is exactly how if anybody reads any Celtic writer, I mean, well, we've got William Shakespeare, you know, who wrote a lot about
Yes.
the Fae.
He did.
And there's actually people that think, okay, well, maybe William Shakespeare was clairaudient or clairvoyant and actually channeled these plays through.
Who knows?
Right, who knows?
Maybe he liked a drop of the whiskey.
Well, yes. But, you know, I've told you that joke, you know, about the two Irishmen, right?
Yes.
Two Irishmen can walk out of a bar. Could happen. It could happen. Sometimes it could be three that might actually
Yes.
walk out. So this whole thing with you, how did it start? Because I know you didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to become a Celtic shaman. You took a huge
I took
roundabout.
I took the circuitous route.
Yes, you did. I was listening to your story, and I was like, wow.
Well, I come from an average American middle-class family.
You come from people that have not yet made that wealth.
That's correct.
But there was hope.
But my mother, she was quite canny.
That's wonderful. So you come from a Christian
Yes, my
background.
Christian family, but you know, they were the like I said, typical American family. We went to church at Christmas and Easter,
Okay.
weddings, funerals,
Right.
baptisms, that
So
sort
when
of
you
thing.
had to go, right?
When I had to go.
When there was one more drunk or one less drunk.
And we, when I became a teenager and could ride the bus by myself, back in the day before everybody had a car, I lived in Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is my hometown. And this is where the Edgar Cayce Foundation Library is located. Now, you know, Edgar Cayce was a medium at the end of the 19th century and the early 20th century.
Yes.
He also had a hospital, which they called a sanatorium, in Virginia Beach. So I went to the library, and they have everything from A to Z, like aliens and Zoroastrians. You name it, they've got it. And so I started reading a little bit of this and a little bit of that on the development of religion, Western civilization, aliens, Atlantis. Another
I do
big-
believe Atlantis existed.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I don't leave any possibilities out.
Right.
And learned as much as I could, learned about witchcraft historically rather than popular media style. And then had a detour as a Mormon. And
Yeah, that when you said that to me, that was like left field.
Well, part of it is I've always been a visionary. I remember having visions as a child. I remember as a teenager having visions as well. When I first picked up the deck of tarot cards, I did a very accurate reading, a cold reading actually.
Oh, awesome.
And
Yeah.
had no knowledge of the events in this person's life. And so that detour came along. And then when I divorced my children's father, who was also a Mormon, some friends of mine came out of the witch's broom closet. And I kind of laughed at them because, I've known this for years, big fat hairy deal. And they wanted to take my daughter to a pagan festival with their daughter because they were best friends. And I said, well, only if I can go. And because I had not been involved in the modern witchcraft movement at that point, and I was in my 40s. And so I went to the festival, and I saw, the wannabes, and I saw the real witches and pagans and people who followed the old ways.
Yeah.
So I started studying with their group, went through a few other groups along the line, and joined one coven in Norfolk, Virginia called Nematon. And Nematon is an Irish word, means sacred grove. And learned a lot from them. And then my husband and I formed our own coven, which is Grove of the Sacred Spring.
Okay.
We thought we were just going to be another mishmash, modern witchcraft tradition, but
Not quite.
the other worlds had other ideas.
Yeah. Anytime you try to tell the spirit what it's going to do, it laughs.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we tapped into the consciousness of the fairy tradition. And I'm not talking wings and glitter here. This
Right.
is otherworld contacts. This is where the shamanism comes in. And really, a true witch is a shaman.
Okay.
Because witchcraft, like shamanism, is practices, not a religion.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's a huge difference.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Witch, the root word wis, means wise. It also means wicked.
Ah.
And then craft is an archaic word that means your job or your vocation. So it's wise craft or wise job.
So
Or
got
job of the wise,
Right.
wise cracker.
right, because back in the day, they were the ones that had the herbs and
Midwifery.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And-
the essential oil, what we now know as essential oils.
Yes.
And they had the natural solutions.
Yes,
to
and
things.
living with the cycle of the seasons as well, which is part of the shamanism as well. With the rituals that we do, these are all the solar agricultural rites, our high holy days, and then monthly the full and dark moons, or new moon, are the passages of the moons, of course. Those are where we do our magic.
Okay.
The holy days, or Sabbats, as we call them, are where we celebrate the seasons. Now, the ritual itself is an act of magic. And this is where we help to pull the cycle of the seasons along so that they continue.
I think a lot of people have actually kind of gotten out of sync with celebrating the seasons.
I agree.
I think we've, even if you just look at what is going on, just even in our supermarkets, you can get certain fruit all year round now.
That's correct.
And that's not the way it was. It
No.
was, in the fall you prepared, you had the squash and the pomegranates and all that were, fall and winter fruits. And then you had your spring and summer fruits. But I think a lot of people have disconnected from nature
Yes.
in many ways. I don't think that has anything to do with witchcraft. I think that's just in general.
Yes, I agree with that. And, with the fairy also. As each season passes, which happens at about approximately every 6 weeks, as our position in relation to the sun changes. And approximately every 6 weeks, the gates of the other worlds open. And the fairy people, the good neighbors, they change their location of where they live. And as they do this, they are pulling the cycles of the seasons along also.
Oh, okay.
And so as we do our rituals, we are working in conjunction with the land itself, the fae, and the spirit world as well. And so we are helping to participate in pulling the seasons along. And for us in the Celtic shamanism and the fairy seership, this is part of our function as shaman, is to work with those cycles to pull them along. So even though we have the autumn equinox coming up, which in the Celtic shamanism we call Alban Alfred,
Okay.
And then a more modern term would be Mabon, which happened that was coined in 1970 by
Okay.
Aidan Kelly, a modern pagan author.
All right.
And Mabon is one of the names of a Welsh god.
Okay.
So that's how
So that has more to do with the change of the season from summer to
Fall.
to fall,
hmm
which is actually one of my favorite seasons. It's so beautiful.
Oh, it is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And this is the time of the harvest.
Yeah.
And this is the time when there is a balance between the light and the dark
Mhm.
parts of the years. And this is when the courts of the Fae change from the Seelie court to the
To the
unseelie
unseelie.
court. When we think more of the ancestors. So this is our second grain harvest. And if you live out in a farming community, you'll see this here in America.
Yeah.
hmm
It's for grapes and all that. Yeah.
Grain.
Yeah.
This is when the
Yeah.
wheat is first
Oh, okay.
harvested, but there is a previous corn harvest. And actually, the word corn is not corn on the cob as we know it, which is maize.
Right.
It is referring to a single grain of any type of grain. So this would be the summer wheat, then the fall wheat, and then the final harvest at Halloween, which we call Samhain.
Mm-hmm.
You see it spelled as Samhain, but it
Right.
said Samhain in the Gaelic.
Right.
Is the final grain harvest, and it's also the time when the farmers would slaughter their animals, those that were too old or too ill to make it through the winter, or
Mhm.
any excess animals that they could not afford to feed through the winter. And this is when they would smoke their meats and preserve them
Right.
to feed the family through the dark time. Now, Mabon is that balance time,
Mm-hmm.
and this is our Thanksgiving.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's all about it is about actually giving thanks for abundance.
Yes.
Yeah. And I
Mhm.
think that goes in any
Oh, any
spiritual
culture,
beliefs.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
You know, the earth and the sky are what provide for us.
Mhm.
And if we cannot feel gratitude for that, then, what kind of people are we?
Right. And you actually have not just this event this coming Saturday, but you're doing something for Halloween, right?
Oh, I'm doing lots of things for Halloween.
No, but I mean, I heard through the grapevine you're actually going to be do some readings at one of the hotels here.
Well, let's see. October 3rd and 4th,
Okay.
I am going to be appearing in my entertainer persona
Okay.
as Madame Roseweed, the fortune teller.
Oh, right. Okay. And where's that going to be?
This will be at Circus at their haunted hearse and professional
You're
car
going to be
show
doing readings in the hearse.
with a skeleton. So the readings, as I understand, will be free, but we want you to give us a can of food also to go to
Okay.
3 Square Food
Okay.
Bank.
So they're not pay. So people are not paying for readings there.
Not that I know of. I'm
Okay.
doing this for free.
So tips even.
I don't know. I have to
Okay.
ask.
Okay. So this event happens when, and how do people find out
October
about
3rd and 4th
Okay.
at Circus from noon to 9. And if you'd like to know about it, I'm sure you can go to the Circus
Right.
website. They also have a Facebook page for the haunted hearse and professional car
it?
show.
Now, speaking of Facebook, do you have a Facebook page?
Yes, we
Well
do.
Moon.
Well of the Moon.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're at 2650 South Decatur Boulevard, Suite 2.
And that's just south of Sahara, next to a shoe store.
Yes.
There.
Yes.
How do they like you being next door? How do they feel?
Mixed
Do
feelings.
you get good? You get good shoe rates?
Nah, they don't give us a discount. But some of their employees come and buy incense from us
Okay.
on a regular basis. Yeah.
Good. Now, why would somebody use incense? I know why I use it, but let's talk about that for a minute. Why buy incense?
Well, scents trigger our mind
Mm-hmm.
and remind us of things. If we use a particular scent over and over and over again, it will imprint on our memory.
Mm-hmm.
I use it for prayers to the gods and goddesses. I use it to cleanse a space.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And my favorite one is sweetgrass. Love sweetgrass.
Yes. Now, sweetgrass and sage are actually American herbs that are
Mhm.
used for that. They did not exist. Now, sage as a flavoring existed in the old world,
Mhm.
but it was not used for sacralizing a space.
Okay.
You would be more likely to run into something like dragon's blood,
Mm-hmm. Which is not real dragon's blood, obviously.
No, it's
Right.
a plant resin.
Right.
And it's red.
Right.
And it smells really sweet. Or frankincense and myrrh.
Which are traditional Catholic. That's
Yes,
what I
and
grew up with.
they are precious things. They
Yeah.
come from the Middle East.
Yes,
They're not
Egypt,
native.
actually,
Yes, they're
I believe.
not native to the British Isles or European continent.
So let's talk about this for a minute. There's a lot of people, especially here in Las Vegas. I sometimes get called out to cleanse a house. I'm sure you do the same thing.
Oh yes,
And there's a lot of things that need to be cleansed out of houses. Now, you and I are not talking about the vacuum and the
No.
mop and the broom. We are talking about cleansing a house energetically.
yes.
I'll give a tip, but what are your tips on how to do that?
Well,
I know. Well, this is a good thing. People need to know. And I'll tell you why. Just recently, I have a couple of friends that are moving, and they sent me pictures of a house that they're thinking about moving into. So I scanned it, and I checked the energy of it. And I'll tell you, I started to get sick. And for me, that's the cue of don't even think about it. But there could be a booming business for people out here if they wanted to just cleanse houses all day.
very true. Well, I use a combination of methods,
Okay.
and it depends on the person that I'm working with
Absolutely.
as to what will weird them out and what won't weird them out.
Sometimes you just want to weird them out a little bit, right?
Yeah. Some people I just want to annoy.
And she almost gets me to spit my water out when she says that. This is live internet radio, people.
Well, and I don't wear black. Ooh.
Well, but you have black pants on today, and no pointy hat.
No pointy hat.
So let's talk about how would you go about cleansing a house? Let's say for somebody that's pagan.
I would use two different methods here. If I felt that there was negative and harmful energy there, I would use what's called a blasting rod.
Oh, okay.
So this is
Some
actually...
people call those guns.
Well, mine's made of wood.
Okay.
The traditional blasting rod is made of blackthorn. Now, blackthorn is not native to Las Vegas Valley.
No, I would think not. But it is
And
native to Ireland, I
It is
believe.
native to
Yeah.
Ireland. However, the key here is getting in tune with the plant spirits of the environment that you live in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I use creosote wood. Now, creosote is an interesting plant. Creosote's root tips are poisonous. And so it will kill off any other plants that try to get too close to it in order to conserve water and nutrients in the soil. And as we know, our soil is very thin here.
Soil's horrible.
It will even kill other creosote plants.
Wow, they were talking about some real jealousy issues with this plant.
Yes, so it's a fabulous blasting rod.
Okay.
And so literally I would use simple words. There's nothing fancy in the fairy seership or the Celtic shamanism. There's no spell books or
Right.
anything for this. This is whatever words come to mind.
And that's part of you being intuitive.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And so you would, literally focus your energy on the blasting rod and that energy going out and blasting those entities away. Now, sometimes you can just ask them to leave because they don't
Yes.
even know that they're
That they're dead.
disturbing
Right.
the environment.
Right.
So you might want to take a minute to talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
You can use salt. You can use a knocking technique, and the knocking technique is no. There is a traditional pattern,
Okay.
and it is knock, knock, knock. And they know that you're talking to them when you do that
Oh.
pattern.
Okay. So
Because-
1, 2, 1.
Yep,
Okay.
1, 2, 1. And you knock, 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 and you say, okay, listen up, folks. These are the rules.
It's time to go.
It's either shape up or ship out, and
Mhm.
it's on my word alone. No deities are required.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially if you're working with the homeowner, you use their authority of place and
Mhm.
ownership. And if it's your own place, then you use your own I'm the head bitch or the head witch authority.
Right.
Because we are the ones with the bodies,
Mhm.
and we are the ones in charge of that space because of this. And so they have to listen to us. Then you would take your blessing rod, and then you would bless the space in the same way,
Mm-hmm.
letting that energy flow through that. And here, what I have used is the cottonwood tree, the wood from that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a reason for that as well. The plant spirit of cottonwood is one of blessing. The native Shoshone people here would carve these into cradle boards for their children.
Oh, we have 5 minutes left. Okay.
And then they would use the fluff from it to stuff their moccasins to keep their feet warm in the winter.
Okay, so part of what the Celtic shamanism, it sounds like you're doing, is incorporating the natural from this area.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because this is where I live. This is what my body is now made of. I've been here for 8 years, so all of the cells in my body have changed over.
Yes, you've gotten used to our weather here.
Yes. And so I'm aligning and tuning myself to this place, and that is the Celtic shamanism, is to align and attune the self to your physical environment, to use the tools at your disposal in your environment, and to work with the people and that is the shaman's job, is to serve the people.
Yeah.
So it is the same as any other shaman.
So now when I clear a house, and I also work with people with, depending upon their belief system, I've tried a lot of different things, but what I find works best is a couple of different things. Chanting Om works very well. But I use a Tibetan bowl.
Right.
And I just have, from what I've been told from my guiding spirits and angels, there's the Tibetan bowl is just really powerful. And so I tend to clear it out, and then I also use some of my pranic healing. Right. To clear out space, and then clear it out, and then and then bless it.
Yes. Well, I also use loud noise too. I use like large seed pods on a string and shake them, and they clack. Yeah. And so that works as well.
Right. Yeah, and I guess that would be like me using the Tibetan bowl. It is very much about sound.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. We've only got a few minutes left, so I want to thank you all for calling in. But I want you to give out the name and address and phone number. And we're both going to be doing phone readings, right? We do. At the store, right?
I don't do phone readings.
Oh, you don't do phone readings?
I don't like to do phone readings.
Okay. Well, I will be doing phone readings at the store. So all of my clientele, you can get a hold of me at 702-204-7750 to book an appointment. Now let's clear this up right now. You do not, and I'm going to be doing my obviously clientele on my phone. Right. There's not a landline for phone readings at Well of the Moon.
There is not. We use a cell phone.
Right.
The address is 2650 South Decatur Boulevard, Suite 2. The phone number is 702-666-7200. You can book an appointment with either Jane or myself.
Not with my number, though.
Not with my.
You got to book it with me.
And Jane will be there Wednesday through Saturday, and I'm there hours from Tuesday through Sunday, depending on the schedule between my daughter and I, who run the store.
Right. So this is going to be interesting because it's kind of, my route there was very circuitous as well. It was, let's go to a few other places and experience really some toxic stuff. We don't mention the name of where I used to work.
Right. Well, we try to clean up after ourselves spiritually.
That's so important.
That's when doing readings, and however, we do not banish or dismiss any of the spiritual entities that we bring in because they live in the land. We can't dismiss them.
Right. No, I bring my angels with me wherever I go.
Yeah, and we cannot send them away because they belong there. The only difference is we cut off our awareness of them, and so that we become invisible to them, and they become invisible to us.
I do have a question for you. What kind of a psychic are you? You're obviously clairvoyant.
Yes, non-traditional.
Well, I mean, you read tarot cards.
I read tarot cards. I do scrying mirror. Okay. I do crystal ball.
I should do a crystal ball reading with you.
I can work with no tools, but people can wrap their head.
People like the tools.
Like the tools.
Yes.
I can use a pendulum. Yeah. I do not do palm reading. I can do tea leaves.
I have not. It's amazing how many people ask me if I do palm reading. No, I don't. I read energy, and I read cards, and I'm clairaudient and clairvoyant. Yes. I'm empathic.
Yes, I'm an empath.
Yeah.
And then I also do spiritual cleansings, unblockings, and reversals. Okay. Other magic as needed. However, I won't do a love spell for you.
That's manipulative.
Nor will I do a hex for you. If you want to do one, I'll teach you how, sell you the supplies, but it's your problem. Thank you very much.
Right. Right. And I think that people, if there's something like that going on, you should try the human solutions too
Yes,
first.
exactly.
Though. Talk to the person, try to work it out
Yes.
before you go into.
And some people need a psychologist.
Yes. 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 Absolutely.
And I will refer people to medical help if they need it, because it would be irresponsible of me not to do so.
Right, because we're not allowed to diagnose. With that, I can tell people where I feel heavy energy. And I can remove that energy, but I can't promise anything.
That's correct.
Just hopefully that there's positive results. We're just about out of time. I can't believe this hour went so quickly. How much time do we have left? We have a minute left.
Wow.
So so check out our Facebook page for Soul Chat. This is the new name of our show, Soul Chat on Facebook. And then you have a Facebook page, Well of the Moon.
That's correct.
And so please like our Facebook page. And I would like to get interactive. So, it's not just Lainey and me posting on Soul Chat now. You can actually message us on Facebook at Soul Chat with Jane and Lainey. That's the long version. Or you can just send a message. You know how Facebook works. I want to thank you all for tuning in today. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm really, really looking forward to starting at your shop.
I'm looking forward to having you there.
It'll be fun. I'm Jane McGuire, and my guest today was Vicki Clare.
That's right.
Have a good week, everyone.
Here I am, standing at the door, looking back at life as it's been before, holding on to things that might have been, knowing that this day will never come again.